folks! We've come to Halloween here, and it's time to talk about what's going on with the news today, and it's a bitch of a fucking humdinger today that we're going to go over here. So let's talk about some of the stuff that we're going to see upcoming in the show here. Starting with a new budget reconciliation is going to be coming down the pipes after all. They're going to vote on it. We're going to see what happens with this, but I have no faith that that woman from Arizona is going to come through in the end. So we'll talk just a bit about that. In other news, the federal government is going to give millions of dollars away to illegal immigrants because they were separated from their families. So we'll talk just a bit about that. The Rittenhouse case is going to be coming up in the very near future, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there and what some legal reactions are going to be to that. And a Halloween ad featuring a transgender child causes stir in right-wing circles. It's going to be all this and more. Let's go, Brandon. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, everybody. Happy Halloween. How we doing? My name is Jay Edgar. This is Contemporary, and, well, I guess most of you who have been around the YouTube sphere for a while know where my costume is. I was going to try to do this in character the entire time, but man, oh man, I've looked over the news, I've tried reading some of this, and this is a very, very high energy character that I would be doing here. But, of course, there is no offense meant to Razor Fist, because I am a huge fan, I'm a massive fan, and I do hope to interview the guy one day off of this here. And I also looked at this and thought to myself, you know, trying to come up with massive alliterations on the fly coming out throughout this, that was going to be harder than I thought, and really, honestly, I think that would have taken away from some of the analysis here. And while we are here to have fun, and I do want to have some fun with this here, yeah, there's the fact that we do need to have some of the analysis here. So we got to get started here because we've got a jam-packed news cycle to go through here today. And also remember that if you guys are just lurking in the live chat today, make sure you get one of your messages in so I can come up and say thank you throughout the end of the show. And I've also written down the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat throughout the week here. So we will come back and say a special thank you to everybody else who joined us as well. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I am definitely looking forward to this episode. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while here. I put a little bit of effort into this. I thought this was fun. So yeah, absolutely. But we got to get into it. We got to get started. Let's get the live chat up here so I can see what you guys are doing. See if anybody has reacted to what we've got going on here, because that was quite a bit of fun. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Let's see. Live chat up here. No, it's not Fonzie, it's Razor Fist. Alright. Anyway, let's get into it here. Let's get started. Why do I still have the Daily Wire up? Why does anybody have the Daily Wire up? Oh yeah, I use them every once in a while. Alright, before we get started, you guys, head on over and check out my friends over at Turn Some Pages. Oh, Jesus Christ, I almost said Freedom Scoop. Head over, check out my friends over at TurnSomePagesProductions.com. It's going to be a great time here. We just had Bobby Joe up on the Red Ned Show. She is a great guest. I mean, she doesn't really watch the news, so it was a little bit of a struggle there, but watching some of the reactions, seeing some of the kitchen table issues, some of the stuff where getting the information presented to her and reacting as to, okay, this is how this is going to affect my household, my family, etc. That was definitely quite the interesting take, but her forte is, of course, web design, which she is going to be designing the Turn Some Pages Productions Media Group, so go and check that out. Something cool is still coming. But that will not stop you from heading over and checking out the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Freckles and Brit Show, and the Porch Boys. Go and check all of them out. They're great shows. They're great friends to this. Stephen Ignoramus of the Daily Ignoramus is going to be on the Red Ned Show coming up here on Monday. It's going to be really helpful because he is going to... It's one of those guests that doesn't need to really do a lot of prep as he comes into things, and I'm going to be spending most of the day down in Kenosha talking about Rittenhouse and having a look at some of the riots. And with some of the stuff we'll be talking about today, I definitely think that we are going to be seeing some riots coming in off of this. So definitely, that's going to be a great time. But yeah, go and check that out. It's going to. Steven is always a great guest. I don't know if he's been here since he's been in his new studio, but if he has not been here since he's been in his new studio, that has been way too fucking long. Steven is probably one of my best friends, one of my favorite people in the world. So definitely somebody that I want to come back and hang out with again, and we will check him out there. And if you guys do want to, oh, by the way, we will be premiering new Steven Ignoramus music on the Red Ned Show on Monday. It'll be the new theme for the Red Ned Show, or Ed's World, if it turns out to be that by the beginning of the 4th season. It won't get premiered until December, but regardless, it's going to be a fun time, and I love to see the guy work. So he's very proud of what he's done. I'm very happy with what he's done, and we'll see what's happened there. And if you guys do want to support the mission, what we're building out here, go ahead and check out the GoFundMe we have here. It's linked in, it's not linked in the description yet, but it's been all throughout Twitter. I've linked it in the chat everywhere. We are stalled at 500, and we still need to get another 1,500 to get everything started. So we'll be doing some reach out as well, and reaching out to some people to see if they can come back and help us out with that. Oh, excuse me. So go and check that out. But we got to get into the news of the day, and we are going to start with the Dow. The Dow yesterday wound up having another update up to 35,730.48. I think that is just shy of another record close, but after tumbling the day before, just making up the difference off of this is going to be huge on people who have invested in the Dow. Earnings season is coming up to a close, so we're going to see if these numbers have staying power. If we can actually hit 36,000 by the end of the week, I don't know if we will or not, or if we can bring ourselves back down to 33,000, 32,000. It'll depend on where this goes, what we do, and what the vaccine mandate does to the workforce. So we will see that. Looking in at your Bitcoin is at 61,729. That is from last night. Let's get a refresh on this. Rather, 60,995 US dollars and 60 US cents. That is where we see here. That is a slight decline up off of yesterday, but still up over the time where I got $5 free in Bitcoin from Coinbase when I signed up to go get some Shibu. Yeah, I came off my old wallet and I just went onto Coinbase like a basic person, so I'll be watching the Coinbase stock as well. But yeah, the Shibu isn't doing as well as I thought it would, but you know what? I only threw 20 bucks into it, so I'm happy with it. And I'm still happy with where my Doge came out off of this. So if I lose 20 bucks, hey, it's 20 bucks. But we will see what's happening with that. All right. Let's look in and see where your metal prices are at. Arvolt got it. Arvolt got it. Looking in at what we have here. Copper is down. Steel is up. And aluminum is down. Aluminum is actually looking like it's holding steady, but it must be in the fractions of a penny on the downswing here. Copper down, of course, $3.34 a pound. Looking in at your individuals, it appears that all of your coppers, including brass, are on the downswing right now. Steel, BX is up, but light iron is down. Number 1 steel is down. Cast iron is up. Rotors are up, and a complete car is up, as well as shreddable steel and stainless steel. On your aluminums, we also see a fairly mixed bag. Cans are still up. Sheet aluminum is still up. Aluminum rims are still up. But radiators and siding are both down. So that's where we're seeing coming off the metal prices. We will see what this does with the industrials and where this goes. But for there, we go from here. All right. Let's get into the big news of the day here. Oh, I never even brought up my finance articles. Oh well, we'll have to go without it here. We are going to start this morning with a little bit of Halloweeny news. As usual, I'm dressed up as Razor Fist, as Arvolt got it off of here. I don't know who Andrew Dice Clay is or where that comes off of this, but yeah, we got some metal going on, some metal mythos. The aviators, which are, by the way, rubber banded to my regular glasses because otherwise I wouldn't be able to see. I even found a smaller pair of wireless headphones to sit in so I could listen with this, but I think that my costume was a little bit better on point than Mayor de Blasio's because Sam Raskin tweets out, Mayor Bill de Blasio is dressed as Captain Kirk during his press conference. Who's enough of a Trekkie to fucking know what's wrong with this picture, you guys? I'll give you guys a second in the chat to see. Arvold got it the color. Captain Kirk wears gold because he's in command. And they actually switched back and forth on that for a little while when they went from the old generation to the new generation. But Captain Kirk, as a command officer, wears gold. This is a science officer's uniform. And he also doesn't have the right stripes on his sleeve to be a fucking captain. So this was a fucking fail in any sense of the word. Now, you know, Sam Raskin had come out and said that de Blasio had dressed up as Mr. Spock and had the big fucking ears to go with it. That would have been acceptable, or any other sort of a general science officer, because he's dressed in science officer's colors and he actually has the rank on his sleeve to be Mr. Spock as well. He just doesn't have the motherfucking ears. So, good job. Slow clap for Mayor de Blasio. Alright, let's get into the news. Let's talk about this budget here for just a while. We'll start with the Daily Wire. Do-over. Biden debuts modified now $1.75 trillion spending plan following Dem fracture. This is from Emily Zanotti. President Biden debuted an updated version of his Build Back Better spending plan, this time scaled back from the $3.5 trillion human infrastructure plan proposed months ago, in hopes that a fractured Democratic Party can unite behind both this and the bipartisan physical infrastructure bill. The $1.75 trillion proposal focuses on care for families, addressing the climate crisis, expanding access to health care, lowering costs for the middle class, and tax reforms, CNN reported. The president on Thursday morning headed to Capitol Hill to pitch the framework to the House Democratic Caucus, and will later deliver remarks from the White House to make his case to the American people. The new bill drops paid family leave but keeps universal preschool as well as child care subsidies, expands affordable housing, and focuses on climate change policies and expands the social safety net. This will mean the most transformative investment in children and caregiving in generations, the largest effort to combat climate change in history, a historic tax cut for tens of millions of middle-class families, and the biggest expansion of affordable health care in a decade, a senior administration official told the network. The reintroduced bill comes on the heels of a string of White House failures in selling a more ambitious Build Back Better spending bill, which would have spent double the new $1.75 trillion compromise package. Progressives were not willing to back a bipartisan infrastructure bill without a guarantee that the expansive spending measure would pass the Senate, and key senators were not willing to back the expansive spending bill without major spending cuts. Republicans have been exited the process altogether. Democrats still need a full participation to pass both measures in the Senate. All Democrats must vote for the expansive Build Back Better bill because it is scheduled to pass through reconciliation, a procedure that requires the bill to be budget-focused, but also allows the Senate to pass it with a simple majority rather than a supermajority. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi has a Rules Committee meeting scheduled for Thursday, anticipating that the bill will pass the House before the end of the day. The White House has indicated that they would prefer the bill pass before the president lands in Rome. The bill has not gone on for either caucus for markup and has not gone to the Congressional Budget Office for a rating, which means that she's fucked. Biden told the media on Thursday that his presidency will be determined by what happens next week, implying that Congress should pass the plan in order to cement the president's agenda before his first year ends, marking the beginning of the 2022 midterm elections. Fox News reports that despite the White House's belief that their compromise will attract parties to the table, progressives are expressing skepticism, noting that they must trust senators, including Manchin and Sinema, to negotiate the bill in the Senate. Let's talk just a bit about what's in this piece of shit, because, well, it's a piece of shit. And it's going to push us back into even more levels of spending, as usual. So let's have a look at this. The $1.75 trillion proposal focuses on care for families, addressing the climate crisis, and expanding access to health care. First and foremost, right up off the bat, focuses on family, addressing the climate crisis. We're going to have universal pre-K, and this will be the most transformative investment in children. That's the first thing they're going to do when they trot this motherfucker out and talk to the American people about this and put this on all the news programs of, won't you call your senator and won't you think of the children? Oh my God! Because that's what they're going to do. Historic tax cut for tens of millions of middle-class families. I'd like to see where that's going to go and what this is going to do with the deficit, because, once again, this is seeming to be more of a handout for your big business buddies who want to push their small business, their small-time competitors down and out of the picture, as it usually is. You know, more climate care, more regulation, more this, more that. And I've heard another analyst talk about this yesterday and talk about the fact that, yes, I mean, President Trump went through and he said that if you want to pass another regulation on business, you have to get rid of 2 more. If you want to pass 1, you got to get rid of 2. Whereas at this point, President Biden looks like he looks back. And by the way, Congress, during the Trump years, every time they did pass a regulation, it looks like they were striking out 16 on average. It was 14 to 16, depending on the fucking year. But as they went through, and as this new administration has come in, it's looked more like the fact that they've gone through, and for every regulation that Trump cut, Biden wants to pass 32 more. And he's doing a very fucking good job of it too, by the way. So I guess we'll see what happens with this and where this goes with business. But I mean, they're talking about universal preschool as well as childcare subsidies, and expanding affordable housing. That is all on a local fucking level. Unless you, of course, want to give away billions of dollars to your big business buddies and your corporate donors and, hell, your state allies as well, where they can turn around and launder this back into their pockets for campaign fucking donations. All of this should be decided on a local level, and I'm not even saying a state level on this point, folks. We're looking at some of this stuff. We're talking about where this is coming from, where the money is going, and if you just eliminated the federal government's grasp out of this, the responsibility of taxation from the states and localities would be able to turn around, move this money back around, and put it back into the communities into things like affordable fucking housing. So that's what we're getting back up off of that. Now, as far as who's going to pass this and who isn't, we still don't know where this is going to go. And looking at this from the left, it's interesting to note the fact that this is not going to be the $3.5 trillion proposal that was brought out here. I'm sure that Bernie Sanders will fucking cuck because that's what he does. He's on the Senate. He's going to caucus with the senators. And he'll probably come in and say, I don't like this. I don't like where this is going. But this will guarantee pudding cups for me and my people throughout the years. And I'm going to vote for this. And I'm going to go tell my mentor, my student, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm going to tell her that she must vote for it too. But the left side of the progressive wing of the House is going to be motherfucking pissed when they see this. Because this is not the bill that they asked for. And this has none of the big priorities. Yes, there's the climate change aspect to it, which is another big gift to the big billionaire donor class, but I'm interested to see where this goes. This could be defeated by progressives. This could be defeated from the left because it's not big enough. But we'll see what happens with that. Let's talk a bit more about this here. Let's read from the Hill. Biden spending framework leaves out Medicare negotiating drug prices. This is from Peter Sullivan. This is another thing that came up out of the big bill because they can't afford it. They can't get past some of the people that they're trying to get to. They can't get it past the cinemas and the mansions. And there are a few other holdouts here that are going to be in the House on the moderate side that wouldn't vote for something off of this because it was too motherfucking big. Let's read. The framework of a deal on President Biden's social spending package unveiled on Thursday does not include allowing Medicare to negotiate lower prescription drug prices, leaving out a major Democratic priority. A senior administration official told reporters there were not enough votes among Democrats to pass the policy. President Biden has spent countless hours over the last several weeks discussing this topic with members of Congress and trying to secure a deal, the official said. But at the end of the day, there are not yet enough votes to get something across the line that will deliver what the American people need and expect on prescription drugs. The absence of drug pricing in the package is a major failure for the party on one of its key campaign pledges, and an area where leaders like Biden and Speaker Pelosi have repeatedly vowed to take action. Senator Kyrsten Sinema, as well as a small handful of House Democrats, were seen as obstacles to passing the policy. As rumors circulated about the drug pricing provisions being dropped or watered down, on Wednesday, vulnerable House Democrats urged their party to keep a strong provision in, noting they campaigned on it. All of us would love to be able to go back to our districts and say, hey, this is something we campaigned on that we delivered, said Representative Susan Wild of Pennsylvania, speaking on the other frontline members in a competitive district. Now, because of the objection from a small minority of Democratic lawmakers, the drug pricing provision is being left out. Look, here's part of the problem that we see with this, and of course we're here to talk about part of the problem from what we're seeing off of this, and that is the fact that the free market isn't allowed to thrive off of this. That is especially coming through when we see that the ACA is involved with this, but really honestly, there are big provisions that are in the law that make sure that companies like Pfizer, and like BioNTech, for another one that's an example, and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, get to have the monopoly on these drugs. They get to have long patents and long intellectual property rights that most of your other patented options don't have. And they do really squeeze the generics up out of the market. A reform to patent law would go a massively longer way to changing your prescription drug prices and renegotiating your prescription drug prices than sitting here and calling for the law to come out and say, hey, let's let Medicare come back and do this. Because if you get a bunch of generics up on the market where people can look at the pill and say, hey, I can manufacture this for 15 to 20 to 30 motherfucking percent less, then you're going to walk away with your big name companies like your Pfizer and your Moderna looking at this and saying, well, do I either lower my prices or do I not sell it at all? Because a lot of them, especially if they find out how much it actually costs to manufacture some of these drugs, are going to wind up not selling any of it at all, as their generic competitors come up and offer the same drug for a quarter to a tenth of the price. So that's what we're seeing coming back up off of that. But, leave it to the federal government to come out and say, hey, let's just throw some more money at it, and let's throw another law at it, and let's make another fucking regulation. But that's what we see coming back up off of that. Alright, let's look in here further. The Sunrise Movement at Tempe got involved with this here. They tweet out, we're outside the Capitol with other advocacy groups demanding that Democrats in the House and President hold the line and deliver for our communities. Capitol Police are threatening arrest on dozens of peaceful nonviolent protesters. Hashtag hold the line. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like.
Hold the line! 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 Hold the line!
That line it's definitely not as effective unless you follow it up with, love isn't always motherfucking on time. So that's what we see off of that. And there we go. That's what I mentioned there when we first talked about the infrastructure package dropping, is the fact that a lot of this is going to wind up it's going to get blocked from the left. These environmental activists that were promised that we were going to put an end to fossil fuel entirely, except for what's going to be used to mine all the minerals for the electric cars out of here. That we're going to put an end to anything, to nuclear, to natural gas, to anything that makes life, the current life that we have, livable at all. Wax for candles, that's a fossil fuel-based thing. That's paraffin, that's an oil. Yes, there's soy wax, and the people that are out here screaming hold the line definitely know a whole lot about fucking soy, but yeah, there's that aspect to it. But for the most part, any candle that you have up there that you're going to use to read your book because there's not going to be electricity to run your fucking iPad, that's going to come from oil. See, this fossil fuel fear that you have is much more entrenched in your life than you believe it is. But all they want to think about is the factories that are just going to open up in China and belch out even more black smoke, and your car. Unless your car is electric. And then they don't want to think about the mining that went along with that. Alright, let's keep going. Cori Bush got into the news this week. Representative Cori Bush accuses oil executives of environmental racism. From John Brown. Representative Cori Bush on Thursday claimed that fossil fuel kills millions of people and alleged that oil company executives who promote them are a striking example of white supremacy. White supremacy has moved on and become, by definition, anything that Cori Bush doesn't like. Bush, who is a member of the House Oversight Committee's subcommittee on the environment, made the comments during a congressional hearing about climate change with CEOs of Exxon, BP, Shell, and Chevron. After asking BP America CEO David Lawler if the majority of fossil fuels CEOs are black or white, Bush went on to ask Shell Oil CEO Gretchen Watkins if an oil refinery is more likely to be in a black or white community. Then she asked Chevron CEO Michael Wirth if the impacts of climate change were more likely to hit a black neighborhood or a white neighborhood first. Each executive maintained they lacked the requisite information, after which Bush answered her own questions. Probably with a lie. Let's have a listen.
Today, and the corporations they represent, St. Louis has 11 more 90-degree days per year than when I was born. Mr. Lawler, are the overwhelming majority of fossil fuel CEOs black or white?
No, I don't have the exact numbers, but I would assume they're white.
Yes. Ms. Watkins, is an oil refinery more likely to be situated in a black community or a white community?
I'm not sure how to answer that, honestly. We've got oil refineries along the U.S. Gulf Coast, and we're very proud to be community members there.
It's black. Yeah, it's black. Mr. Wirth, are the impacts of climate change more likely to hit a black neighborhood or a white neighborhood first?
Congresswoman, I have not seen studies that would allow me to give you
The answer is black. The facts are clear. A 2017 NAACP and Clean Air Task Force report found that black Americans are 75% more likely to live next to company, industrial, and service facilities that directly harm us. For years, you all have continued to promote fossil fuels despite knowing that promoting them means promoting environmental racism and violence in black and brown communities. You all are still promoting and selling fossil fuels that are killing millions of people. This is a striking example of white supremacy.
Well, the first thing I want to say to this, and this is the first thing that I'm going to say to a lot of things. Your black communities have the choice to live where they live. Now, yes, if they're going to be dependent off of Section 8, which I think that's the point that she's trying to get to, is the fact that it's a lot of Section 8 communities that are in there, which, by the way, is wildly fucking racist, Cori Bush. But if your community is going to be dependent on Section 8, yes, that does make it depend on where your city council decides to put the Section 8 housing. Where they decide to allow the zoning for the multifamily units that are generally used in Section 8, that's going to be on your city. That's not necessarily going to be on your factory. But folks, if you don't want to live in a neighborhood where the oil refinery is, then move. I didn't want to live in the neighborhood where all the violence was. So I worked hard, scrimped and saved my pennies, and I moved the motherfuck out, folks. It's not that hard. And yes, if that's what you do, if you depend on the government, well, first off, stop depending on the government. They don't give a flying fuck about you. But second, pinch up some pennies, do something to change your situation, and get out of the neighborhood that is offending the people that you're trying to represent. It's not hard. And given the situation, if we do get to the position where people are moving out around these areas, then property values are going to drop because the landlords can no longer make money off of them, and that's going to put pressure on them, and they're going to come back and try to force the oil refinery, because that is the evil villain, to come back and clean up their fucking act so that they don't lower the property value and people will come back and rent those fucking houses. Hopefully it'll be workers in the factory because they don't want to have to commute so far. But once again, government intervention in something that the free market could have solved. Let's keep going. This was interesting. This actually very much interested me. As I was looking at the news cycle here, I found this about in the middle of the day yesterday. Pushing a Build Back Better agenda, Biden claims you can drive across the country in an electric vehicle on a single take of gas, figuratively speaking. From Ian Haworth. On Thursday, the White House announced that it was confident a $1.75 trillion version of President Biden's Build Back Better bill would be able to pass both the House of Representatives and the Senate, and it would be set the United States on a course to meet its climate goals. And of course, by climate goals, they mean big giveaways to their corporate buddies. As a part of the agenda, the White House is describing the nearly $2 trillion spending drive as the largest effort to combat climate change in American history. The framework will cut greenhouse gas pollution by well over 1 gigaton in 2030, reduce consumer energy costs, give our kids cleaner air and water, create hundreds of thousands of high-quality jobs, and advance in environmental justice by investing in a 21st century clean energy economy. Come on, man! From buildings, transportation, industry, electricity, and agriculture to climate and smart practices across our lands and waters, Biden administration claimed. According to the White House, part of this effort involves substantial consumer rebates regarding electric vehicles, with the electric vehicle tax credit being increased from $75,000, or 100 rather, not 1,000, to $12,500. Man, if an electric vehicle costs $75,000, hell, that's going to be more expensive than a brand new F-150 XLT. The consumer rebates and credits included in the Build Back Better framework will save the average American family hundreds of dollars per year in energy costs, announced the Biden admin. These measures include enhancements and expansions of existing home energy and efficiency tax credits, as well as the creation of a new electrification-focused rebate program. The framework will cut the cost of installing rooftop solar for home by about 30%, shortening the payback period by around 5 years, and the framework's electric vehicle tax credit will lower the cost of an electric vehicle that is made in America with American materials and union labor by $12,500 for a middle-class family. Okay, there are a couple things that are wrong with this. And there are a couple ideas that are in this article that I actually enjoy. The framework will cut the cost of installing rooftop solar for a home by around 30%. That is not going to fly with the big business people. That's not going to fly with the electric companies and the owners of the electric companies who are donating to these big campaigns. Do you know why? Because if you come to a point where you are somewhat energy independent of the grid, meaning if you're independent of the ability for them to charge you whatever the fuck they want, and threaten to cut off your electricity if you don't do exactly what they want, which is coming down the pipes, by the way, they're not going to go for that idea. They're not. Self-sufficiency is not something that these people enjoy or accept. Now, yes, if you have the opportunity and the ability to do so, and can do so safely, by the way, because keep in mind, remember, that the chemicals in these current generation solar panels that we have, if they do happen to fall on the ground, will make the ground fallow for a generation. So do keep that in mind and be careful what you put so. But that being said, if you have the opportunity to put a solar panel on your house, do it. Absolutely. That is something you want to do because that changes some of the... And the solar panel is not going to be enough to provide all of your energy needs throughout the year. But it's enough to offset some of the cost that comes back up out of the energy company. And in an emergency, where a power line goes down, it'll keep you going. It'll keep your radio going, and it'll keep your cell phone charged. You probably won't be able to run the gigantic gaming rig, because that's going to be too much of a draw on your system. But you'll keep your cell phone charged, and you'll keep your water hot. And you'll be, like if you're in a forced air heat, you'll probably be able to keep the blower motor going if it's cold out. But no, these people don't want to see energy independence from you. They don't. Because then they can't punish you if your social credit score drops way too low. Oh, hey, your social credit score dropped below 300? Oh, I guess you don't get electricity this month. So we'll see where that goes and what happens with it. I mean, it's the same reason that they had the fines up in the Northeast, or the Northwest rather, for collecting rainwater. It wasn't because they didn't want you collecting rainwater, because it was bad for you or something else like that. It's that they wanted you dependent on the city water facilities. There's been talks here and there about making it illegal to live on a property with a well, because they want you dependent on city water. Because they want you paying that water bill, that municipal water bill. As I've always said, always follow the money, and you'll find the root of the cause for the legislation. But I want to get to this point where he said that you could drive across the country in the electric vehicle. I don't think we have video of it, which is lame. In addition, the framework will help rural communities tap into the clean energy opportunity through targeted grants and loans through the Department of Agriculture, the White House added. And there's where we get into Biden. Well, we'll build out the first ever national network of 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations all across the country, announced President Biden on Thursday. So when you buy an electric vehicle, and you get credit for buying it, and when you buy an electric vehicle, you can go all the way across America on a single tank of gas, figuratively speaking. It's not gas, you plug it in, he added. 500,000 of them, these stations along the way. According to EVBox, the average electric vehicle range on a single charge is 194 miles, with the longest being 396 miles. The distance across the country, for example, New York to LA, is approximately 2,800 miles, which means the average vehicle would need to be charged over 14 times, far more than the figurative one tank of gas President Biden seems to be referring to. This news also coincides with criticism leveled against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband Paul Pelosi. The financial dealings of Pelosi's husband Paul came under scrutiny earlier this year when he purchased as much as $1 million of Tesla call options, one of the largest transactions of Tesla shares disclosed by a member of Congress. Reported the Washington Free Beacon, at the time Republicans charged that the House Speaker was crashing in on her power. Not figuratively speaking. And that's one of the other questions I have, and like I said, I think that electric vehicles are cool. I think everybody should go out and get an electric vehicle if the technology is there and they have the opportunity to make sure that it stays charged. Now, personally, I would wait for probably another 5 to 7 years while the technology gets all the kinks worked out of it, because they're still working some of the kinks out of it. But, you know, in 5 to 7 years, we're going to start to see that used market pile up, and they'll be affordable to people. Like don't go out and buy a brand new electric vehicle for $40,000 if you can't afford it. But it's something to definitely look into. I mean, you get more torque than even the most powerful gas engine. Maybe not the most powerful diesel engine, but you get more torque than even the most powerful gas engine, and it's able to full field right away, right up off the top. They're quiet, and yeah, they're environmental. Yeah, of course, the mining for the batteries is not environmental, but, I mean, at some point, we're going to get to that point in technology anyway. It's cleaner. The parts don't break down as often. So there's a lot of net positives, but there's still a lot of bugs and quirks that go along with these. And this is coming from somebody who drives a vehicle with a V8 that's very, very loud. But I still think electric vehicles are cool. But, I mean, this is not the save and the godsend. And one of the big quirks to this, of course, is the fact that I can get in my truck and drive, go down, fill up the tank, and drive. I can get all the way to Ohio, going down 76 in Ohio from here, and then stop at one of the little oases on the side of the road, and 20 minutes later, be going back down the road. As far as I understand with the electric vehicles, you can get this magical 396 miles off the full charge, and then it's another 8-hour charge to get it charged back up to full again. Now, never driven one, never charged one. Don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard enough people come back and tell me that yes, it does take a notoriously long time to charge. Which to me sounds like that would actually cripple the commercial industry, because they're trying to move the trucks over into this electric too. I mean, if you can only go 300 miles, and I doubt it would even be that on a full load, and then you have to stop 8 hours, your freight's not getting where you need it to go. I can tell you that right now. Plus whatever it costs to go back and hook it up to the charger, because, hey, these truck stops are not going to let their chargers go, and the electricity go through them from the kindness of their hearts. I've met truck stop owners. It's not going to happen. Why does it take you 20 minutes to pump gas? Because I have a 33-gallon tank. That's why. But, yes, apparently you can drive across the country on a single tank of gas in an electric vehicle. Thank you, President Biden. Huh. I guess we have to refresh this one. From The Blaze, liberals lash out at CNN's Casey Hunt over her threat to Dems dropping paid leave from the massive spending bill. From Carlos Garcia. CNN journalist Casey Hunt, said that she would be aiming to hear from suburban women disappointed with Democrats, and many liberals lashed out at her over the tweet. Hunt was referring to reports that Democrats were dropping paid family and medical leave from the Build Back Better legislation pushed by President Biden. The tanking of a pivotal policy supported by Biden and many progressives was seen as a massive blow to their agenda. Hunt implied that suburban women would be disappointed with Democrats and that she would interview them ahead of the midterm elections in 2022. Let's read what she has to say. If paid leave is left out of this bill, I'm going to spend the midterms covering how suburban women who turned on the GOP over Trump are responding to Democratic governing in D.C., especially after the pandemic. Initially, Biden and Democrats had called for 12 weeks of paid leave in the bill, but that was whittled down to 4 weeks after objections to the cost of the legislation by Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona and Joe Manchin of West Virginia, both Democrats. On Wednesday, reports indicated that all paid leave was to be cut out of the bill. What? And I repeat, what kind of ever-loving fuckery is this? Exactly how are companies supposed to get anything productive done if their entire workforce, especially if it's a small business like mine that only has 5 workers in the department that I work in? What are you going to do if each one of them is entitled to 3 motherfucking months off? Paid, by the way. How do you rack that up? And once again, this is going to be another one of those things that your massive company, like your GE, or the big business donors, they can cover this no problem because they've got thousands upon thousands of people they can tap to come in and fill in the gaps. But when you're looking into a small place, a very, very small business that only has 17 people total in the entire building across 2 shifts, and each one of them is allowed to be gone for 3 months, paid. How do you cover the overlap on something like that? Even 4 weeks is fucking ridiculous, but, you know, at some point people earn that much. I get 3. And I never use them. Many on the left were infuriated that Hunt would imply that Democrats were to blame for the failure to secure the paid leave. Some accused her of threatening Democrats with her reporting. Oh, is making threats how this works now? Cool, let me try, replied Ellie Mistel of The Nation sarcastically. If voter suppression bills are allowed to stand, I'm going to spend the midterms covering how white people in the media don't give a shit about democracy. Already right-wing, CNN employee promises to become more brazen about being right-wing, tweeted Parker Malloy, a liberal writer. I'm not going to construe this as a bizarre threat to seek out bad coverage on the backs of an incredibly specific group of people, am I? Said another critic. Now, I'm not completely sure where she's going with this, or why she wants to go back and interview middle-class women, other than the fact that, yes, they do need to come back and get their voices heard, but far be it for the mainstream media to come out and actually listen to the people, unless it's a selected group of protesters that happen to be standing in the middle of fucking Kenosha when they're not supposed to be. But yeah, that's who she should be interviewing, the people who are directly affected by this. That's part of the reason I lay out across the board the way that I do, is because I do want to have kitchen table issues on the table. I want to talk to people who are directly affected by the policies we discuss whenever I do that show, which it's been too long. I got to do another one of those. But that's what we see coming off of that. Yes, Mark, I am razor-fisted today. But that's where we have coming off of that. Here's one that'll hit a lot of people in the pocketbooks, especially on the lower to middle class. McDonald's hikes prices to offset wage increases, supply costs. You know, that thing that we were assured was never going to happen? Well, it's happening, folks. From Carolyn Vakil. McDonald's is hiking the prices of its menu items in an effort to offset wage increases and supply costs in the U.S. as the U.S. grapples with a labor shortage and supply chain crisis, the Wall Street Journal reported. Compared to last year, the higher-ups at the fast food chain anticipate menu prices in the U.S. increased to roughly 6% this year, despite the fact that McDonald's reported strong third-quarter results on Wednesday. That's because in McDonald's U.S. restaurants, wages this year are up at least 10% as of now, and supply costs for things such as food and paper are anticipated to increase 4%, according to the Journal. McDonald's is having a difficult time trying to hire enough people to operate under regular hours. And I'm sure that on top of the fact that their wages have had to go up 10%, they're also paying out a bunch of overtime right now because, and that's at time and a half in the U.S. I don't know where it is in the rest of the world. I see our Australian friend has joined us here. I don't know what overtime rules are in the rest of the world, but I know here that is your wage times 1.5 every time you get over 40 hours, and that is a union. That's a union thing that got codified into law, so that has to be done everywhere. So that's probably driving the prices back up too. The chain noted that it was attributed to larger order sizes, increases to its menu prices, its crispy chicken sandwich, and celebrity endorsements through its famous orders platform. The news of McDonald's increased menu prices comes as the U.S. battles a supply chain crisis and labor shortages that is disrupting a variety of industries, given the rollout and effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccines, married with federal aid turning the pandemic demand, is outstripping supply. Some port closures, a lack of workers in places like trucking and other supply chain issues have contributed to a rise in prices for goods. Earlier this month, the White House announced that the Port of Los Angeles and several companies like FedEx would be working around the clock to alleviate some of the supply chain disruptions. And that does go up the chain too, by the way, folks. That's something else to pay attention to. It's not just the fact that nobody wants to go work at McDonald's for next to no wages or a slightly higher 10% up on wages. To go along with this, you also have to pay attention to the fact that a lot of the people who are working at McDonald's are looking at the fact that they don't have a lot of sellable skills in and of themselves, which is why they're working at McDonald's, or the demand for their particular sellable set of skills, which, by the way, a lot of the people who work at McDonald's, and I've met a lot of them in the local area, actually do have very, very, very sellable skills. There's just not a lot of demand for those skills currently. In a more open market, where there isn't as much regulation, they would probably be doing a lot better off, but hey, let's talk to the government about doing something consistent or good for the American people. But in a more open market, then yes, we could start to see a lot more of these people have more skills that are available to the market and more sellable to that. But we're also looking at the fact that a lot of these people can go out and get in a truck and get trained with a $5,000 bonus and make twice what they're making at the local McDonald's. So that's contributing to the labor shortage. The shortage in trucking, which is what's getting things from the port or the factory or the processing plant to the McDonald's, is one of the things that's robbing people away from the local McDonald's. As long as you're over 21, you can get a CDL. So it's a vicious circle. And yeah, we're probably going to see this get to the point where we're going to see it. So that's what we see. Let's grab one from the Wall Street Journal. Speaking of things that the government can't afford to pay for, but is still going to push to pay for. The U.S. in talks to pay hundreds of millions to families separated at the border. The government is considering payments of $450,000 per person affected by the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy in 2018 for asylum seekers illegally crossing the border. Well, I would be much more impressed with this if they started with the people who were affected by the Clinton administration's zero-tolerance policy and the Bush administration's zero-tolerance policy and the Obama administration's zero-tolerance policy. But we like those people, so we're not going to do any payouts for those people. Let's read from Michelle Hackman, Aruna Visawantha, and Sadie Gurman. The Biden admin is in talks to offer immigrant families that were separated during the Trump administration around $450,000 a person in compensation, according to people familiar with the matter, as several agencies work to resolve lawsuits filed on behalf of the parents and children who say the government has subjected them to lasting psychological trauma. The U.S. Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services are considering payments that could amount to close to $1 million a family. Though the final numbers could shift, the people familiar with the matter said. Most of the families that crossed the border illegally from Mexico to seek asylum in the U.S. included one parent and one child, the people said. Many families would likely get smaller payouts depending on the circumstances, the people said. The ACLU, and you know this is an intelligent decision when these motherfuckers are involved with this, which represents families in one of the lawsuits, has identified about 5,500 children separated at the border over the course of the Trump administration, citing figures provided to it by the government. The number of families eligible under the potential settlement is expected to be smaller, the people said. The government officials aren't sure how many will come forward. Around 940 claims have so far been filed by the families, the people said. The total potential payout could be $1 billion or more. Where the fuck is that money going to come from? Because we're already looking about printing a whole bunch more money to get this big progressive wish list passed through the House, and even on a stripped-down version, we're going to print ourselves into motherfucking oblivion. Where the hell is that money going to be coming from? And furthermore, we see only 940 claims have been so far. And the interesting part to me is the fact that this is families separated from their children, as they so-called say, but it's usually only one parent and one child. And what did we talk about when this whole thing was going on here? And it's the fact that a smuggler would come in and take a child and try to sneak them across the border and get separated from them. But the smuggler is not necessarily a member of the child's family. How many of those situations are coming up off of here where the smuggler realizes that, oh, I got caught at the border. Now my child's been taken away from me. Now what do I do? Oh, hey, I could get almost $1 million that I could come back and give to my cartel family. Or give to my family out in Mexico. That's $1 million payout, plus what I got from the family to try to smuggle the child into the U.S. But that's not something the Wall Street Journal is going to tell you about. All they're going to tell you about is how bad the Orange Man was for separating families. Separating families at the border and putting the kids in cages, in spite of the fact that the kids are still in the motherfucking cages. But we won't talk about that, you see. If he doesn't go to the border, we don't have to talk about what he thinks about the fucking border. From the Associated Press. More U.S. payouts here. U.S. to pay $88 million to families victims of the South Carolina church massacre. From Meg Kinnard. Families of 9 victims killed in a racist attack at a black South Carolina church have reached a settlement with the Justice Department over a faulty background check that allowed Dylan Roof to purchase the gun he used in the 2015 massacre. The Justice Department will pay $88 million, which includes $63 million for the families of the 9 people killed and $25 million for the 5 survivors who were inside the church at the time of the shooting. It was announced on Thursday. Bakari Sellers, an attorney who helped broker the agreement, told the Associated Press the 88 figure was purposeful. It's a number typically associated with white supremacy. Oh, Jesus Christ. Because it's a Halloween costume, I want to go without throwing my glasses off, but I was close right there. I didn't even catch that. You notice these numbers that are associated with white supremacy are best known by liberal Democrats who are fighting against white supremacy? You ever notice that? We're giving a big FU to white supremacy and racism, Sellers told the AP. We're doing that by building generational wealth in these black communities from one of the most horrific race crimes in the country. You want to fucking bet? According to internment camps during World War II. Just to remind you. Oh, but that didn't affect black people. According to the Justice Department, settlements for the families of those killed range from $6 million to $7.5 million per claimant. Surviving settlements are $5 million per claimant. Months before the June 17, 2015 church shooting, Roof was arrested on February 28th by Columbia, South Carolina police on a drug possession charge, but a series of clerical errors and missteps allowed Roof to buy the handgun he later used in the massacre. The errors included wrongly listing the sheriff's office as the arresting agency in the drug case. According to court documents, an examiner with the National Institute Criminal Background Check System found some information on the arrest but needed more to deny the sale. So she sent a fax to the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office responded to it, didn't have the report, directing her to the Columbus police. Under the system's operating procedures, the examiner was directed to a federal listing of law enforcement agencies, but Columbia Police did not appear on the list. After trying to separate the West Columbia Police Department and being told it was the wrong agency, the examiner did nothing more. So with this, the U.S. federal government is going to be out $88 million, which rightfully so they motherfucking should be. In fact, I would argue that given the monumental failure of the system that they have in place, that they claim, by the way, is put in place to prevent bullshit like this from happening, to prevent because of the monumental failure of the system that they have out there, they should be giving out more. Because this was a tragedy. And by the way, is Dylan Roof still alive? Because if not, or if he is rather, let's put that motherfucker in a chair. Let's put him in the chair. I want to roast fucking marshmallows off his rotting corpse. I wanted them to pump so much electricity through him for this. And on top of this, now given the fact that the federal government is going to be pushing out another $88 million, that's symbolic. Now we're going to get a bunch of other motherfucking gun laws that aren't going to do a goddamn thing to solve the violence epidemic. Going to make it harder for people to legally buy a gun. And people like Dylan Roof are still going to get around the system and find another way to do this. Let's keep going. Los Angeles, Long Beach ports to fine shipping companies over backlog, from Joseph Choi. Oh yeah, that's gonna fucking work. These people are struggling on a shoestring budget to pay overtime and to pay other fees and fines that are associated with shipping and trying to get stuff through. Let's throw another fine on top of them. Officials for the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach on Monday say that they will begin fining shipping companies whose cargo containers stay in the marine terminals for too long as they work to reduce the congestion on their ports. Beginning on November 1st, the ports will charge containers that fall into two categories: containers scheduled to move by truck and containers moving by rail. Ocean carriers will be charged for every container scheduled to move by truck that's been dwelling in the port for longer than 9 days. For containers meant to be moved by rail, carriers will be charged after they have been in port for 3 days. Ocean carriers will be charged $100 per container, with the fines increasing in $100 increments per day per container. Yeah, this isn't a massive fucking cash grab or anything. Port officials said that before the import surge brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, containers for truck delivery sat in terminals for less than 4 days, while containers for train delivery sat in the terminal for less than 2 days. The waiting times have since increased significantly. We must expedite the movement of cargo through the ports to work down the number of ships at anchor, Port of Los Angeles Executive Director Gene Soroka said in a statement. Approximately 40% of the containers in our terminals fall into the two categories, Soroka said. If we can clear this idling cargo, we'll have much more space for our terminals to accept empties, handle exports, and improve fluidity for the wide range of cargo owners who utilize our ports. What about the rail lines that are running on shoestring budgets and the truckers who both have to stop at every weigh station to go make sure that they have every piece of emission equipment on their truck, and are also running on a massive shortage of coworkers, and still have to fall within the 14-hour a day driving range? This is not just a problem with the ports and the shipping companies. This is a problem with the transit companies. This is a problem with what's going on across the ground as much as it is what's going on with the workers in the dock. But go ahead, find them more. They're already on shoestring budgets and they're already paying overtime out the ass to do so. Throw a little bit more of that cost on there and see what's going to happen with the cost of goods in the middle of transit as they have to pass that cost along to customers. Good job, California. Let's keep going. Let's talk about the houseplant in chief. Starting with this one from Disclosed TV. Now, Jill and Joe Biden have arrived in the Vatican, and this is from just a few hours ago, actually. Let's listen.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Jill's husband. Thank you.
The abortion Catholic, Joe Biden, has arrived in the Vatican, and he has not burst into flames. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. Well, I'm really not all that shocked. I like the top comment off here. Oh no, where are their masks? They don't have to wear silly masks. They're the elite. But here's one from the New York Post to go along with that. Vatican Access coverage of Biden meeting with Pope Francis. From Stephen Nelson. Well, once again, they don't really want him to burst into flames while he's standing in front of the Holy Father. The Vatican's press office on Thursday canceled plans to broadcast live stream video of President Biden meeting on Friday with Pope Francis, and now will only broadcast the arrival of Biden's motorcade. It is unclear if the White House, already under fire for limiting press access to Biden, requested that broadcast be curtailed. Spokespeople do not immediately respond to the Post's request for comment. White House Correspondents Association President Stephen Portnoy said the organization disagrees with the new plan to give journalists edited footage after the meeting. Reporters have been covering the papal audiences of the American president since Woodrow Wilson sat with Benedict on January 1919, tweeted Portnoy, a reporter for CBS News Radio. Our fully vaccinated and masked pool of reporters is ready to continue this public service, mindful of its own safety, as well as the leaders to ensure independent coverage of the first Catholic president in 60 years, meeting with the head of the Catholic Church. Portnoy added, the White House told us that the bilateral meeting would involve Biden and Francis discussing substantive matters of global significance, including ending the COVID-19 pandemic, tackling the climate crisis, and caring for the poor. Such international news and events demands independent coverage. The Associated Press reports that the Vatican, for years, has streamed video of the Pope's meetings with visiting world leaders. But, there again, the abortion Catholic is about to go stand in front of the Holy Father, and nobody wants to see it on camera if he bursts into flames. Which at this point I think might be a distinct possibility. But they don't want to have it. Nobody knows where the order came from, but they don't want to have it. Let's keep going. From ABC 7. FDNY unions protest vaccine mandate outside of Gracie Mansion on the Upper East Side. Where's Quest? I want to see if he knows about this. From ABC Eyewitness News. With a day to go until New York City's vaccine mandate goes into effect, Fire union officials rallied outside Gracie Mansion on Thursday and were joined by other union members and politicians. Some of those attending were in fact vaccinated, but they say they were taking part in the protest as a matter of principle. The crowd filled an entire city block of the Upper East Side from curb to curb. Right now, 71% of FDNY members are fully vaccinated. Of those vaccinated, 65% of firefighters are vaccinated, 80% of EMS are vaccinated, and 83% of civilian members are vaccinated. Which, for the EMS, I would actually expect that's a low number to me. That's a very low number to me for EMS because they're right there next to people who are sick. Not that I'm advocating for anybody to go and force them to. I would just be I would not be surprised to find out that that number was higher. Knowing the kind of field and the kind of work that they're in, and the kind of messaging that's been given to the medical professionals across this country. I'm actually a little surprised the number is that low. If that number doesn't go up by Friday, there are concerns that there won't be enough firefighters to staff the city's 218 firehouses. The union warned Wednesday that after some failed negotiations with the city, response times for emergency calls could slow to 15 to 20 minutes, and lives could be put at risk. That's even with forced overtime. The president of the city's fire union told Eyewitness News that he's urging his unvaccinated members to defy the mayor's order and report for work on Monday. What happens on November 1st will be on him. I'll tell my members to go to work. If he sends them home, it's on him, said Uniformed Firefighters Association President Andrew Ansbro. The union's order sets up a showdown with Mayor de Blasio, the captain, Mayor de Blasio, who has insisted that the vaccination mandate is non-negotiable. No, there's no discussion of changing the deadline, de Blasio said. The bottom line is that we can do the things we need to do first of all to keep the city safe in the long run. Well, that means getting people vaccinated. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we have a plan to do that. Yes, we can keep all the other services moving in a way that protects New Yorkers. Yes. Excuse me. Who wants to be the mayor, by the way? Who just has to come out to the people of New York and say, oh yeah, by the way, in a city that for the most part was built in the 19th century, by the way, we are going to shut down 40% of your fire department. And all those taxes that you paid in to make sure that you stay in the city and you have access to medicine and the fact that you can get to a hospital, lickety-split, and we'll have an ambulance there. Yeah, we're shutting down 10% of your ambulances too. Who wants to be that mayor? I know I sure as hell don't. All municipal workers are required to show proof of vaccination by 5 p.m. Friday or be placed on unpaid leave. It applies to roughly 1 in 4 police officers and 1 in 3 firefighters and EMS workers. Police and fire commanders are already drawing up plans to protect New Yorkers without thousands of first responders. In a city where there are on average 80 heart attacks every day and 3 serious fires every hour. Well, I guess that's one way to do population control. That's on the city of New York, and they're making determinations to force feed this, and the ramifications of this are outlandish, said retired FDNY Fire Marshal Kieran Burke. Some demonstrators say they don't trust the vaccine, but many are refusing to get vaccinated on principle. I'm an American and it's freedom of choice, an unidentified FDNY fighter said. Everybody should have the freedom of choice. I've had it. I've got the vaccine myself personally, but still, it's freedom of choice for some of those guys. And that's why they're protesting, and that's been my thing up off the top. I've never told anybody not to go out and get this thing. I joked around about their 5G coverage, about their cell phone coverage with them, but that's because I think it's hilarious. And not because I think that it's bad that they went out and made a choice for their own personal health. You always have to go make a choice for your own personal health. That's the first thing you have to do, and the first thing you have to decide is what is best for your health and your family. And if that's what you feel is best for your health and your family, then by all means go and do that. I don't feel that's what's best for my health, my family, and my bottom line. So I have not gone and done this. And the other side of that is if you cower and bend the knee to this one mandate from the government, there will be another one sitting right up off its heels. And that's where this guy is going with this. I'm an American, it's freedom of choice. It's still a freedom of choice for some of these guys, and if you bend the knee to the government, they will have another mandate waiting for you. It's just like that eternal fucking game of Fauci Says that we played last year. Fauci says, don't wear a mask. Fauci says, leave the masks away for the healthcare professionals. Fauci says, wear a mask. Okay, you can go back to not wearing a mask. Oh, I didn't say Fauci says. Speaking of New York, Andy Cuomo is charged with misdemeanor sex crime for alleged mansion grope. From Jonathan Dienst, Courtney Copenhagen, Tom Winter, and Melissa Russo. How many people does it really take to write Andy Cuomo is a fucking creeper? Lucien Chalfin, a spokesman for the state court system, confirmed a misdemeanor complaint against Cuomo has been filed in a sex crime case in Albany City Court. A copy of the complaint from the Albany County Sheriff's Office, obtained by News 4, alleges that Cuomo admitted the misdemeanor act of forcible touching at his official residence on the afternoon of December 7th last year between 3:51 p.m. and 4:07 p.m. At the aforementioned date and time and location, the defendant, Andrew M. Cuomo, did intentionally and for no legitimate purpose forcibly place his hand under the blouse shirt of the victim, redacted, and into her intimate body part, specifically the victim's left breast, for purposes of degrading and gratifying sexual desires. All contrary to the provisions of the statute, in such case made and provided, the complaint reads. The complaint cites evidence including cell phone records, state capitol swipes, state police records, and text messages from Cuomo's cell phone. Albany County Sheriff Greg Apple says in a press release that investigators with his office had been looking into the allegations since August 5th and determined that there was enough probable cause to present the evidence to court. A summons was issued for Cuomo, who expected to surrender and appear in court on November 17th at 2:30 p.m., when he will be fingerprinted and photographed. Over a misdemeanor. Look, should he have done this? Probably not. Was it bad that he did this from a position of authority? Probably. But is this really going to do anything, anywhere for anything off of this? No, this is a floor show. For them to come back out and say, oh, well, you did this. Now let's go and make a big floor show out of this and say, yes, we are serious about women's rights. We're going to come out here and you are going to be our sacrificial lamb and you're going to come out and do exactly what we say. Otherwise, we will ruin you, your fortune, and your family, which they have the power to do and the possibility to do. So, that's what we see coming up off of that. Here's an interesting article, and this one comes to us from the left. Our friend Golden Leaf put this up in the Discord so we could come back and see this. This is from The Nation. I hope everyone is prepared for Kyle Rittenhouse to go free. From Ellie Mistel. And this is a full-on propaganda piece, and we'll talk a bit about why this is a propaganda piece in just a few moments. But let's read what it is that they have to say here. The trial of teenage gunman Kyle Rittenhouse begins next week, but the fix is already in. Rittenhouse, who's being tried as an adult, shot 2 people dead in the street of Kenosha during the protest that followed the shootings of St. Jacob, hallowed be his name, in 2020. That he killed 2 people is undisputed, but Rittenhouse claims the homicides were justified acts of self-defense. Rittenhouse is not from Kenosha. He went there with other armed men, allegedly to defend a place called the Car Source, which I point out is just to emphasize that he wasn't even trying to protect his own property in his own town. Once there, he began patrolling the streets with an assault rifle, illegally gifted to him by an older friend. I find the claim that Rittenhouse subsequently murdered 2 unarmed people in self-defense to be unconscionable. In a just world, Rittenhouse would go to jail for a double homicide and illegal gun possession. But we do not live in a just world, we live in a white one. Rittenhouse has become cause célèbre among white supremacists and their media sympathizers, who have proudly defended Rittenhouse's decisions to kill. Rittenhouse is the very definition of an outside agitator who came into somebody else's community armed to do violence, but because he murdered while white, he will probably walk free. The reality is almost assured because even if Rittenhouse somehow draws an impartial jury, we'll talk about that propaganda line in just a second, he's already won the white people's lottery and landed a very partial white judge. Wisconsin State Judge Bruce Schrader, county judge by the way, has presided over the Rittenhouse case from the beginning and has done nearly everything he can to tilt the scales of justice in Rittenhouse's favor. This week, in the last pretrial conference, Schrader declared that prosecutors are not allowed to refer to the people Rittenhouse murdered as victims during the trial. He said victims is a too loaded term, as if there were some other word we should use for unarmed people who were shot to death. Okay. Now, there is a progressive argument for not calling victims of homicide victims at a trial. I can absolutely see the argument that using the term in a case where the defendant claims self-defense lacks neutrality. It's a choice other judges have made, though I doubt that this kind of neutrality would be given to a black teen who gunned down people at a MAGA rally. Still, I wouldn't call Judge Schrader biased for this ruling alone. I call Schrader biased because, well, he's white. I call Schrader biased because the same conference, which he decided to prohibit the prosecution from using the word victims to describe the people Rittenhouse shot, he said he would allow the victims to use words like rioters, looters, and arsonists to describe the same people. So this is a blatant propaganda piece, and there's plenty more to go off of with this. But this, I mean, just coming up to the first half of this is a blatant propaganda piece. And I mean, we look into this off of here. This was put into place to spur on more riots and more unrest and more things that can get into the news where people can come out and say, donate to Black Lives Matter because we didn't get our way. That's exactly what's going on here. And I'd love to see and figure out what an unbiased jury is to this writer. Elie Mystal. I would love to see what the unbiased jury is to this one, because I'm sure that it's a jury of all black people who are particularly aggrieved by the fact that they lost their neighborhood. I don't know that there's a possibility of even getting an unbiased jury out of this trial because this has been so federalized and so nationalized. But we saw the same thing out of the Chauvin trial. It was almost impossible for him to get an unbiased and basically a fair trial, especially given the fact that most of the jury couldn't be sequestered. Now, I don't know if there's going to be sequestration in this jury or not, or if they're going to be going home every night after arguments are made and then driving back through protests. I don't even know if there are going to be protests out there through the day. We'll find that out on Monday when I do some on-the-ground reporting out there, which I will be going down off to see this. But I've got this feeling, and one of the things that goes off with this, and I've noticed this as well, we saw a little bit of this with the Chauvin trial, and we're seeing a little bit of this with the Arbery trial, in spite of the fact that public opinion generally tilts toward the fact that the people that are charged in the Arbery murder are generally accepted as guilty by the majority of the people around the country. Because in spite of the fact that, yes, they were operating under what appears to be a lawful citizen's arrest law, they shouldn't have brought the gun into this. If they did have to detain him, they should have done so unarmed by the law that was in Georgia at the time. They should have done that unarmed and only escalated if things kept. And that was an accidental homicide to begin with. But for the most part, a lot of people agree, and it goes down to Soccer Mom America, agree that these people shouldn't have been doing what they did. So they couldn't get the dividing factor out of this particular case. But this entire article from top to bottom just reads of, this is us versus them. And this is a white supremacy thing, and the only reason that he's possibly out for this is because he's white. In a just world, Rittenhouse would go to jail for double homicide and illegal gun possession. And I also love the fact that this woman has come out and written this article and pointed out the fact that he killed unarmed men. The first person shot fired a gun into the air. And as I said yesterday, when we first started talking about this, I could see that possibly as a third-degree manslaughter. Because the gun was fired into the air, yes, tensions were high, Rittenhouse turned around and shot and caught the guy who had the gun in the neck. It caught him in the neck, and he eventually bled out on the pavement. But, there again, a person looking around intending that he was defending himself because he thought he was being shot at. I wouldn't call that a cold-blooded, predetermined murder, as this author probably believes that this is. But a heat of passion, turnaround, and discharge, resulting in the death of somebody in what he believed to be self-defense, but was not in fact self-defense. But we've all seen the video. We've all seen the kid running away, literally running away, stumble, turn around, have a skateboard swung at him, shot number 2, killing skateboard swinger, and then seeing Gage Grosskreutz, who was on CNN and admitted the fact that he had a gun and he intended to shoot Rittenhouse. He said that on CNN, with his lawyer sitting next to him, and lost his bicep in the process. None of the people that Rittenhouse shot were unarmed. Not a one of them was unarmed. And yes, the second 2 were definitely justified shootings. Anybody who's seen that video and thinks that those weren't justified shootings is lying to himself for political purposes. Because Rittenhouse did the unthinkable crime of defending himself while white. Anybody who's seen that video, the third one, it's up in the air, but the charge that I would think would fit that one more professionally is not on the table either. So he'll probably walk for that one too, in a just world. But we'll see what happens off of that. We got some video here. This is from CNN, and this says, "See legal analysts' reaction to judge's decision in Kyle Rittenhouse case." So this is a legal analyst. I don't know if this is a lawyer or not, but I'm kind of curious to hear what this guy has to say.
Victim is a loaded word. And I think alleged victim is a cousin to it. Let the evidence show what the evidence shows, and if the evidence shows that any or more than one of these people were engaging in arson, rioting, or looting, then I'm not going to tell the defense they can't call them that.
The prosecutor argued the judge was setting up a double standard. The debate highlights also the crux of the defense's argument that Rittenhouse opened fire in self-defense. He's pleaded not guilty to felony homicide and felony attempted homicide. Jury selection begins Monday. If this has left you scratching your head, well, you're not alone. CNN legal analyst Areva Martin joining us now. So, Areva, I literally cannot wrap my head around this, right? So if the evidence shows that maybe, there could be a looter or rioter, it's totally okay to show that. But if the evidence shows that someone was shot, we can't call them a victim or even an alleged victim. I can't make sense of this.
Yeah, Erica, it's incomprehensible. And here's the problem, too. Rittenhouse, even if these individuals who were shot were involved in rioting and looting, the evidence, what we hear to date, is that he didn't know that. He didn't have that information when he pulled the trigger and shot these 3 individuals, killing 2. So his state of mind is what's on trial. And the fact that he didn't know that they were involved in this activity, makes that in my opinion, makes that evidence irrelevant. And talk about loaded terms. To call someone a rioter or a looter is a pejorative term that suggests that they deserved what they got. They deserve to be shot and even deserve to die. So really incomprehensible decision by this judge.
And, we've talked about this before as well. Oh, shit, we're going to have to hear the House Plant Chief talk. Let's shut that up.
Today,
Shut up. We don't want to listen to you right now. We talked about this yesterday as well, and what went on with this and where this goes. And when you look at what happens here, first off, CNN has left out an important part of this, and that is that the judge has advised the prosecution that if they are to use the terms like rioter and looter, they are to use them in the closing arguments. They're not supposed to use them in the direct lines of questioning. Now, whether they will continue with this is yet to be seen, but also we need to point out the fact that the defense will have the ability to object to this. And under the rulings, the way that we heard it from Schrader, not the way that they clipped it for CNN, but under the way we heard it from Schrader, I anticipate that those objections be sustained if they do it during the lines of questioning. Now, if they do it during the closing arguments after they've determined what these people were doing, But the CNN analyst did bring this into mind, but of course, they're not going to look at this objectively or what happened with the video or anything else like that. They're just coming out to say, oh, well, Kyle Rittenhouse went specifically to Kenosha to murder people. Where in reality, yes, it is Rittenhouse's state of mind that's on trial. Was he, in fact, retreating under his duty to retreat in Wisconsin, which I think is bullshit that you shouldn't have to have a duty to retreat, but was he retreating under the duty to retreat in Wisconsin? Under the video I've seen, yes, he was running away. Stumbled, fell, skateboard swung at him. And then gun raised to him. Shoot again. No other property damage or loss of life than the people who were directly assaulting him on those two. Jury's still out on number 3, but, once again, the charge of man 3 is not on the table. I think, honestly, he was overcharged on this one, but that's what we see coming off of that. What else do we have going on here? From the Associated Press. 2 border agents are fired for offensive Facebook posts. From Elliot Spagat. 2 Border Patrol agents were fired from among 60 found to have committed misconduct for participating in a private Facebook group that mocked migrants and lawmakers, investigators said Monday, in most detailed public account yet of an episode that tarnished the agency's reputation. Oh, Jesus. Did I just read those words out loud? Really? Most agents' penalties were significantly reduced from recommendations of an internal border review, according to the House Oversight and Reform Committee staff report. In the end, 43 others were suspended without pay, 12 got written reprimands, and 3 were disciplined in other ways, such as suspension with pay. Customs and Border Protection's Discipline Review Board posted that 24 of the 60 agents be fired after news organizations reported on the group in July 2019, but only 2 were investigated 135 allegations of misconduct. One fired agent in Texas with 10 years on the Border Patrol posted an image of Pepe the Frog, a symbol. Oh my God, are you fucking serious? A symbol of the alt-right and white supremacy, and doctored images of President Biden touching U.S. Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch. The report said other California-based agent, who was at the agency for 20 years and was disciplined in 2005 for undisclosed reasons, published homophobic memes and a doctored image of then-President Trump raping a member of Congress. The report doesn't name the lawmaker, but Ocasio-Cortez has said she was depicted as being raped in the Facebook group named I'm 10 to 15. I'm 1015, which is Border Patrol code for migrants in custody, had about 9,500 current and former agents as members, including 2 agency chiefs, the report said. Carla Provost, who was chief from August 2018 until January 2020, after more than a year as acting head, joined in 2017 and told authorities she used it to get an unfiltered gauge of reactions to her statements. Rodney Scott, who succeeded Provost until being forced out in August, said his members enabled him to communicate with staff and know what the workforce is talking about. So, a couple things that go along with this. First off, if you are in a Facebook group making fun of your boss, your job, or your customers, and your boss finds out about it, you're probably going to get fired. That's everywhere. And yes, I understand. It happens all the time. But most people are better at hiding their tracks too. Most people who do this, who go into these private chat groups and whatnot and talk about how much they hate their jobs or how much they're sick of their jobs, are better at hiding their tracks. So these people got caught. Now, as far as should they have been fired, if it is just for what they're alleged to have posted, maybe the rape one was a little bit too far. I'd have to see it to know. That one might have been a step too far. But for posting a Pepe the Frog, are you fucking kidding me? Is that the reason you're actually citing the fact you're firing somebody for posting a fucking Pepe? That's another one of those things where I love the fact that it's 4chan. troll the left into thinking this is white supremacist, and now it's become white supremacist. Where it's just an easy meme that you can go back and edit into whatever the hell you want it to be. I know leftoids that use Pepe the Frog, by the way. I hang out on Twitch. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get their audiences pissed off at them. But, like, super leftoids. I know I follow a girl who uses her pronouns in her Twitch profile. And her Instagram profile, too, actually. Her chat is full of fucking Pepes. A Canadian pansexual progressive that I follow. Her chat is full of fucking Pepes. It's not a white supremacist thing. It's just an easy meme. The rape one, like I said, I would have to see that one to know exactly how raucous and how rigorous that one is. That one might, maybe. But yeah, if you are making fun of your clients, especially in a law enforcement position like that, out in public where people can see, there's going to be some sort of consequence. That's in the private sector and that's in the public sector. Yes, you have freedom of speech, but your employer also has freedom of association. So I'm not entirely shocked by that. Here's a little white pill for you. From the Hill. Gus is here late to the show, but he did get out and vote. Strictly Communist Party line, of course. Fox poll shows Youngkin leading McAuliffe by 8 points among likely voters. This is from Michael Schnell. Former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe is trailing Republican gubernatorial candidate Glenn Youngkin by 8 points among likely voters in the latest Fox News poll, though the two remain in dead heat among registered voters. The poll released on Thursday found that 53% of likely voters are backing Youngkin, with 45% in favor of McAuliffe. The margin of error among likely voters is plus or minus 3 percentage points. When it comes to registered voters overall, however, the race is deadlocked, with 48% backing Youngkin and 47% supporting McAuliffe. Among registered voters, the margin of error is plus or minus 2.5%. The new numbers, released on Thursday, come 5 days before Election Day for Virginia's gubernatorial race, which will cap off a tense campaign season for a race that experts are saying could serve as a forerunner to next year's midterm elections. A number of recent polls have shown McAuliffe and Youngkin to be neck and neck. Democratic heavyweights have flocked to the Old Dominion to stump for McAuliffe, including President Biden, former President Obama, First Lady Jill Biden, former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. No, Hill. She is still the rightful governor of Georgia. Just ask her. On the Republican side, former President Trump is scheduled to hold a tele-rally for Youngkin on Monday, though the candidate has largely kept his distance from the former commander-in-chief. Well, that's not what Occupy Democrats tell us. Well, he's a MAGA person. He's a Trump guy. Trump lost Virginia in the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections and is perceived as an unpopular figure in the state. He has, however, thrown his support behind Youngkin, who said he is honored to receive the endorsement. The Fox News poll found that interest in the governor's race among Virginians is high. 73% of likely voters and 63% of registered voters say they're extremely interested in this race. Now, I want to touch on what's going on with this, because this is also propagandist, and I know that a lot of people have pointed out, because McKennedy was the first one that broke this out. She saw this over on Twitter. She tweeted out and said, see, we're winning! To which a lot of people have pointed out correctly the fact that, oh, now we trust polls? Now we trust what polls say? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over here and look at an archive page from RCP. And this is from late last night. I archived this. Partially because RCP is hiding behind the ad blocker block. So there's that here, but we see the Fox News poll up at top. Fox News 1024 to 1027, which does show Youngkin at 53% ahead. But every other poll that we see here has McAuliffe slightly ahead. So, I mean, these all go back to the Emerson is 1022 to 1023, so that's just before the Fox News poll. CNU is 1017 to 1025, so into the same region here. That all show McAuliffe ahead. If you look at the average, and always use an aggregate, Youngkin is only 0.4 points ahead, but even I don't trust aggregates at this point. It's either McAuliffe +1 or statistical tie, except for the one that's Youngkin +8. But I don't even trust aggregates at this point, and I see the fact that this is being pushed out, and it's being pushed out by the Hill to do the same thing that it always does. It's trying to push complacency into Youngkin voters. Oh, you know what? He's going to win, and I do have to make sure that I get the roast done. I got to make sure that we come out here and we get the family trip planned. I got to get to Walmart. I don't know if I can get out to the polls or not. Meanwhile, the ever-loving, horrifying thought that a Trump guy could become the governor of Virginia and flip the state back out to red is going to terrify every progressive in Virginia to get out there. And Virginia is a defortified election too, by the way. That is one where they've gone in, they've done the stuff, they've defortified it all out. So they're going to have a harder time doing honk-honk with the election, but they're going to try to find a way, because the idea of Youngkin being the governor is so terrifying to them. Knowing the fact that he's now 8 points ahead, honk-honk, they're going to come out and do whatever they can to try to come out and fortify this election. Honk-honk. Nothing bad happened, of course. Don't ban me, Susan. And it is amazing to me to also look out and see this and see that a state that has Beltway on it and Beltway influence is this close, no matter where it lands. Because given the fact that so much of the population of Virginia is involved in DC politics and the Beltway itself, this should be a shoo-in for McAuliffe. But there again, the polls are not what they seem that they should be. And if you are in Virginia, or you know somebody in Virginia, urge them to get out and vote. No matter what. The metaverse. The metaverse is here, folks. Holy shit, it's already 9. I guess we're just going to do the metaverse. What else can we do? What do we have that's really stupid? I don't know. We got to get to live chat, though, today. Because that's the most important part, is saying thank you to who's in the live chat. That's always what's most important here. But let's talk about the metaverse. Facebook unveils new name as company dives deep into metaverse. From Lucas Manfredi. As Facebook plans to go all in on the metaverse, a virtual reality space where users can interact with each other in a computer-generated environment, the tech giant has announced it will take the new name, Meta. Today we've seen a social media company, but in our DNA, we're a company that builds technology to connect people and the metaverse to the next frontier. Just like social networking was when we got started, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg said at Thursday's Connect 2021 event. From now on, we're going to be metaverse first, not Facebook first. That means that over time, you won't need to use Facebook to use our other services as our new brand starts showing up in our products. I hope that people come to know the Meta brand and the future that we stand for. Zuckerberg emphasized that the company's corporate structure and how it uses or shares data will not change. Beginning in the fourth quarter, Meta will report its Reality Labs segment separately from its family of apps, including Instagram and WhatsApp. The Facebook app, where users post personal updates, and sweet data that I can consume and sell for more money and more power, is not changing its name. Along with the name change, the company has launched a new Twitter account. That's a fucking conflict of interest. And website. It will also transition from its Facebook ticker symbol to MVRS beginning on December 1st. Shares of Facebook jumped as much as 3% following the announcement. Do you think Zuckerberg just went in and downloaded, because he doesn't have to read, because he's an android, and downloaded the book Ready Player One, and then took the USB jack out of his fucking chest and said, I can do this. I can pretend to be a real boy. I can make the people love me. Just like they loved the creator of Ready Player One. I cannot think of what the name of it was. I can't think of what the name of the virtual universe was in Ready Player One right now. It's been a long time since I read that book. I read it like right before the movie came out. No, it was more than right before. It was like 6 months to a year before the movie came out. God, I can't think of it. It's right on the tip of my tongue, too. I wonder what would happen if I was sitting in a machine where I could get any piece of information in the world at a moment's notice. Virtual World and Ready Player One. Oasis. It was Oasis. That was what it was. I will make the Oasis. And here's the other question. Is it going to actually be just a collection of one man's love for 80s culture? Or is it going to be a mishmash of 80s and 90s like Steven Spielberg's fucking vision of it? But I can also imagine the fact. I mean, I look at leftoids in this country, and I look at the way that they want to do things here, and I can definitely see where they would see Ready Player One as a fantasy. I mean, I'm sure that Zuckerberg and all of these other leftoids want us all living in the stacks anyway. You know, just RVs piled up on top of one another, all gathered into one place. So we can all access the Oasis. But that's what we're seeing coming out of that. That's fun. That's interesting. Let's listen to the robot himself and see what it is that he has to say.
So let's start by exploring what different kinds of metaverse experiences could feel like, starting with the most important experience of all, connecting with people. Imagine you put on your glasses or headset and you're instantly in your home space. It has parts of your physical home recreated virtually, it has things that are only possible virtually, and it has an incredibly inspiring view of whatever you find most beautiful.
Hey, are you coming?
Yeah, just gotta find something to wear. All right, perfect.
Boy.
Oh, hey, Mark. Hey, what's going on?
Hi.
Mark. What's up, Mark? Whoa, we're floating in space? So let's start by exploring what different...
Yeah, no. But I could see something like this becoming the downfall of society, too, just like it was in Ready Player One. Because as more people get addicted into the social media aspect, you know, I've seen people that come out here and get addicted to this kind of stuff here, and they can't come out, and they can't fathom a world where they're not social media famous. So we will see what's going on with that. But yeah, this is, and we've got another one here from Fox Business talking about the same thing here. Facebook investor exposes metaverse rollout as a distraction of desperation from whistleblower scandal. No, I don't think it's a desperation thing, because this would have taken way too long to develop and set up to just be a distraction from the whistleblower scandal. Now, excuse me, if they moved it up or announced it maybe 3 or 4 months early, that I could see. Because this is, well, no, I couldn't even see that right now, too, because this would be the kind of thing that you would want released for the Christmas season to get some of the prototypes out there. So I don't know. I don't know if this was a distraction from the Frances Haugen thing. Just because of the timing and the fact that it's here. I don't think they care. In fact, I think that this is pushing more onto the regulation of the internet, because those bad boys, they can use federal regulation to make sure that they don't get to access the metaverse. But let's read from Angelica Stabile, and that's actually where we're going to end it here. Well, I got one video I want to show you here before we do live chat too. But let's read this one here. Facebook announced Thursday that the social media giant has changed its name to Meta as part of the rollout of virtual reality space called the Metaverse. But early Facebook investor and Elevation Partners co-founder Roger McNamee exposed the claim and countdown for that rebrand has not been a long-term project and was only thrown together to distract the public from whistleblower Frances Haugen's revealing testimony. Everyone should keep firmly in mind that this was not something they've been thinking about for a long period of time, he said. This is something they've put together in desperation to try to divert attention from the inevitable pushback that the whistleblower has caused by providing evidence of irresponsible management and potential felonies committed by Facebook in pursuit of profit. McNamee suggested that Facebook is attempting to distract journalists and policymakers alike while insulating CEO Mark Zuckerberg from being held accountable for all the harm that he's caused on company watch. He warned journalists and policymakers to keep a close eye on the evidence released by the whistleblower. Those are internal documents created by the best people inside Facebook, shared with all the employees that the management disregarded consciously in pursuit of profit and disregard, if you will, for the public interest, he said. In an op-ed for Time, McNamee ripped into Facebook, warning that the whistleblower documents are the inevitable result of dangerous design and Congress is turning its back on the case that would cause catastrophes beyond recovery. No, I think that this woman fucking glows that she went in there, so yes, we can go get more federal regulation onto social media and who is allowed to use it and who is not, because that's going to affect your social credit score. And now they're coming in here with a virtual world that's only going to be available for good little boys who do what we tell them to. That's what I'm seeing coming out of this here. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I don't know where this is going to go. Let's finish out on one video here to show where society is going, and then we will do live chat for the week. So, of Lives of TikTok fame, once again, because we always have to go with Lives of TikTok. History is made. First male wins homecoming queen at Rockbridge High School, Missouri.
Here with us tonight to crown this year's homecoming is the Bruin Bear. And now, Rockbridge, your 2021 homecoming queen is Zachary Wilman. Congratulations, Zachary, and to the entire homecoming royalty team. Best wishes to everyone. You all look great, and you represent us well. Here with us tonight to crown this.
Once again, a man has entered women's space and done it better than women. I don't know what you want me to think about that, but that's what's going on with that. Alright, let's do some live chat here. So let's get that up here for you guys, so you guys can see what it is that you have said. I mean, this isn't even a transgendered person who's pretending to be a woman. This is a straight up dude who's just won queen. I mean, from the looks of it and from guessing from this, I mean, he's been a queen for a long time, but now he's the homecoming queen on top of it. Alright. Let's see what we got here. Starting with what we saw. Well, let's go back up to the top here just to see how much we've missed from the top. I know Arvolt called the costume in the air, which is good. Randy is here. Ron Helton says, Ed the Rocker. Randy says, is he trying to be Fonzie? Chilaga says, oh, we dice today? Ron Helton says, message in a blog post, candy, anyone? What is Ed dressed up as? And Arvolt got it. I just arrived. Is Razor Fist sitting in? God fucking speed. Alright, that's what we have here. So, let's get into it. From Monday, we had Quest Fanning, Arvolt, Grab Bag 43 ML, which was not a robot. It was actually somebody coming in who was being a detractor. Ron Helton, Chilaga 1984, Sir Totes, MK Ultra was here, and Vampire Hunter D was here with us. On Tuesday, Ron Helton, Quest Fanning, Arvolt, Vampire Hunter D, MK Ultra, Chilaga 1984. Diggs, by the way, was here. That's a new name, so thank you for coming in and checking us out. Inverse Impact and Random Randy, or Randy Crush Saga, as he likes to be called over here. On Wednesday, we had Random Randy, Quest Fanning, MK Ultra, Katie Zed was here, Arvolt, Ron Helton, Elaine Mervine, who joined me for a video game stream and came back over for the news. Welcome, thanks for coming in for that. And Republic of Tryhards, another detractor, who decided that he didn't really want to add to the conversation, he just wanted to throw insults. Yesterday we had Ron Helton, Quest Fanning, MK Ultra, Spitfire, who hates Donald Trump and wants me to ask him why. Well, maybe if he's still here, we'll figure out why later on. Let's see, Arvolt, Chaos Soul was here, Chilaga 1984, and Katie Zed joined us yesterday before she had to go off to a meeting. Let's see what's going on today. We have Random Randy, Ron Helton, Chilaga 1984, Katie Zed, Arvolt, of course. We got all these messages already. John Travolta from Greece. That's a good one. I need a lot more grease and hair gel for that one, which I have. And I think my hair might be too long to pull that one off too. The Aviators. The Aviators were a pain in the ass, by the way, to get them to stick. I hope to God I'll be able to get these back on. But yeah, they are rubber banded to my regular glasses. Because otherwise, I can't see the chat right now from here. Because I'm that blind. And that's what I've been trying to figure that. I wanted to do this last year too, but my hair wasn't long enough. I didn't want to get a wig, and I couldn't figure out how to get the Aviators over my glasses and still be able to read. I can't wear contacts. So that was the touch. That was the win right there, is to get them rubber banded in. I'm going to go to work like this too, by the way, just so you know. Let's see, what else do we have here? Arvolt says the color. Yeah, I found a way to put my webcam in black and white too for this. I couldn't do it for Instagram. I tried. For the Instagram stream, I tried to get it in black and white. I couldn't find a filter for it. MK Ultra says Commie Kirk. There you go. Arvolt says, I'm 2 for 2 today. Gonna be a good day. What was the other one? I know you got the Razor Fist one. Randy says, KT, I joked that he was Fonzie. Ron Helton says, just more wasteful spending and graft for them and their buddies. I think he meant grift. Ron Helton says, tax cuts and more spending will just mean more inflation and worthless dollars. Yep. Historic tax cuts for the middle class. You mean like Trump? No. The mainstream media tells us those were only for the rich. Meanwhile, my taxes went down, but they were only for the rich. Randy says they need to worry less about taxes and more about the country operating at the very basic level at this point. Yes. Let the localities handle the big stuff. Randy says that the vaccines aren't traditional vaccines that don't prevent infection. Am I the only one who thinks they shouldn't fall under the vaccine liability clause? No, they absolutely should, and everybody should run out and get them, Susan. Don't ban me. The vaccines are perfectly safe, and everybody should have Hong Kong. 5 vaccines. Don't stop at 4 like the mainstream media wants you to. Go and get 5. Hong Kong. Perfectly safe and legal. Perfectly safe. Everything is approved. Don't worry about it. Don't question it. Just do what the government tells you to. Don't forget cow farts. Randy says, imagine thinking that a mass adoption of green technology wouldn't result in almost everyone in third world countries dying. Ron Helton says, this is some cray-cray. Randy says, we've had record cold days. This just in. Temperatures vary. Ron Helton is absolutely correct. I think the neighborhoods sprang up around the refineries because that's where the jobs were. Yes, before there were mass transit. And even before, by the way, before there was, and I've long thought about this, about, especially given the commutes that I've had to do for work. long before you had cars that were relatively inexpensive, especially if you could go out and get a used one, that had an overdrive gear, so you wouldn't be spending all of your money in your commuting costs and your gas costs. Long before that, yeah, your neighborhood sprung up around the refinery or the factory or whatever it was in town because that was the only place to go to work. And yes, you had mass transit if people wanted to live outside of there, but for the most part, no. You didn't go, like if you lived in Kenosha, you didn't go to Milwaukee to work. You worked in Kenosha because you lived in Kenosha. Because in the 60s, if you had a car with an overdrive gear, it was usually something foreign, and it was fewer and farther between. Most of your cars only had a direct drive gear, not an overdrive. Now that we're in the advent of overdrive, our cars sip fuel so much, we can sit in and listen to a podcast for an hour every day and drive an hour to go to work. I don't anymore because I don't have time to go back and fucking do that anymore. Now I'm starting to do this stuff, but I've done it for a long time. My truck has double overdrive, so I get even better fuel economy. Nephilim Ninja is here. It says, awesome outfit, sir. Sir. My hat's off to you. Ron Helton says, good ideas don't have to be forced or funded by the mafia government. Nephilim says, what does it take you 20 minutes to pump gas? Yeah. Well, I've got a 30-gallon tank. So, that's why. Ron Helton says, your pumps are slow. It doesn't take me that long to fill my 32-gallon tank. They are. I've actually, like Ohio, pumps super fucking fast. Mad Cow Mark says, is Ed wearing his Halloween costume? Yep, I sure am. Ron Helton says, free stuff always gets passed on in the prices companies charge. There is no free lunch. Yes, exactly. Katie Zed says, McDonald's is poison. Every time I eat there, I feel like I'm going to shit my pants. McDonald's doesn't bother me. You know, the other one that doesn't bother me that everyone else says makes them crap uncontrollably? Taco Bell. I have no problem eating Taco Bell. I eat it and I'm just fine. Except because I'm on low carb right now, it also feels like my heart is going to pump out of my fucking chest. But that's a different thing entirely. But yeah, once I eat the tortilla, it's like... But once I go back onto a regular carb eating diet, which I think I'm going to be doing after the first of the year, I think I'm going to go with Noom for that. I think it'll be a little bit better. Plus, you know, it's effectively a glorified calorie counting app. So we'll see what goes with that. Mad Cow says, I thought it was a costume. I don't know who Razorfish is. I must be too old. Ron Helton says, the local McDonald's franchise is paying $9 an hour. The company store 6 miles away is paying over $12 an hour. Arvolt corrected him. Katie Zed says, pay celebrities that don't eat McDonald's millions of dollars to endorse a chicken sandwich, then hike the price of the sandwich up to a price so high that no one buys it. Yeah, I'm bummed that the dollar McChicken is no longer a dollar. Mad Cow Mark says, in Australia, it's 35 hours a week, 7 hours a day. Overtime is 1.5 for the first 3 hours. Double time for any hour after that. That was my union agreement on $27.75 an hour. Those settlements are BS. Okay, so you have a few more off of this. Here it is, and this is federal law. This isn't union agreement, but this is federal law. Overtime is time and a half after 40. Anytime you go over 40 hours, it is you get 1.5 times your wage. And depending on how it goes, like for me, because when I worked for the union, it was also anytime you touched over 8 hours in a day. So at 8 hours and 1 minute, even if you didn't go over your 40, like you took a day off or something, you still got overtime for that 1 minute for the day that you were at 8 hours and 1 minute. Mad Cow Mark says, that was 21 years ago. It'd be a lot more now. Ron says, I disagree with that settlement on the basis that the government is not allowed to have laws restricting firearm ownership. Right, but they do have them, and they did not work. So I agree with that settlement. In fact, like I said, I think it should be more because we were promised that this was going to prevent all the gun violence, and we just background checked everybody. Those background checks should never exist in the first place. Placing blame on the system for crazy people is crazy in and of itself. I just want to bankrupt the federal government, so if they have to pay out to people, fuck them. Mattical Mark says, that's because the Vatican is now a temple of evil. Savage says, where do you lean politically? My political leanings are, leave me the fuck alone. And whichever politician is going to limit the size and scope of federal and state governments so that I don't have to deal with federal and state governments, that's where I am. I don't have any team sports liability. Right now, in the current political climate, I tend to lean Republican to Libertarian because those are the people who are at least paying lip service to that. They're not doing very well in practice, but they're at least paying lip service to it. So that's where I tend to lean. Or at least that's where I tend to get grouped because I'm not a progressive. And then you got Pop for Caps. I need to know if my views are welcome. Everybody's views are welcome here. As long as you're willing to come back out and discuss. MK Ultra says, be careful out there, man. I will. Ron Hunt says, BS, that guy chased him with a gun and cornered him. That guy had it coming. Yeah, that guy had it coming. They were all justified shootings. He had the right to defend himself. Well, we'll do the on-the-ground reporting, and I'll show you where I can see where that could have been Man 3. When I go down there on Monday, I will show you exactly why I believe that could have been Man 3. MK Ultra says, based whiskey judge, love it. Thank you. Ron says, it doesn't matter whether they were rioting or looting, they were attacking and chasing Rittenhouse. CNN sucks. I am J. Edgar, and I approve this message. Randy says, that's the problem. We know you can't comprehend that the case of self-defense makes Kyle the victim. Quest Fanning is here. I'm late to the show, but I did get out and vote. Strictly Communist Party, of course. Ron says he had excellent firearm control. You're only allowed to vote for socialists and commies now. If you don't, they will offset your vote with 2 good ones. Honk honk. No mas. As in a trouncing of the out-of-touch Democrats? Yes. Quest Fang says, yummy, yummy, plumping in my tummy, Youngkin. Yeah, and like I said, I love how much the Lincoln Project goes after Youngkin because I'm just reminded that they will go after anybody whose name sounds remotely like young kid because they love young kids. That feels like a Norm Macdonald joke because I explained it at the end. Quest Fanning says, one good poll is better than a bunch of bad ones, and then fortify. It's a defortified election. Quest Fanning says, Meta World Peace, most violent basketball player ever. Apparently he's interested in the Oculus Quest 2, but having to join Facebook to use it is holding me back. I just can't stomach it yet. I am on Facebook, myself. I never use it, but I have one there, kind of as a placeholder so nobody can come out and pretend to be me, but I also use that for a fan page, which we are streaming to as well, so you guys can go and check that out. I believe that the extension is facebook.com/edsworld101. EOR Explorer says no. I think I remember Google trying this and failing. MK Ultra got it, I think before I did. I went back and looked at the chat while I was doing that, and says that, yes, it was Oasis, was the name of the world. Wasn't it Oasis 2 also? I thought. It might not have been. Let's see. Miss based on Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, which actually has the metaverse. I have Snow Crash in my to-read library, but I have to do Heinlein first because I promised John, which means I have to first finish up the book I'm into, which I'm picking up more and more. That's the thing about Clancy books is they're notoriously slow to start. But once you get about 10% into it, you just can't put the thing down. EOR Explorer says, yeah, no, sorry. This somehow looks more real from the link. Oh, I can post that, except it'll kick me back to the bottom. Actually, I think if I post it in the Twitch chat itself, I can post it back in here and it should work. So let's do that. Let's come back over to the Twitch chat. That's what EOR Explorers just posted out there. Because I can do that, because I have admin. Arvold says the robots finally found a home. What I was linking was a video of someone getting smart off stuff. Do you remember what the Google one was called? The Frances Hawkinson? No, I don't. I don't remember it. Do you remember the intersect from Chuck? Kind of like the opposite thing. EOR Explorer says Google tried and failed to enter the Second Life space over a decade ago. Quest says that's one thing about Google Alphabet. They're willing to cut out when something isn't working. Arvolt sends a RIP to Missouri. EOR Explorer says what? Quest Fanning says, as somebody pointed out, to sum up, if given the opportunity, men are just better at everything. Ron Helton says, I can't properly elucidate what I think about a dude becoming a homecoming queen, especially not without some choice expletives. When has that ever stopped you before, Ron Helton? EOR says, wait, you stream and then scroll back up on the chat? Yeah, Friday is live chat day. So I go through for everything. And also, I write down the names of everybody who chatted throughout the week. So I can say a special thank you at the end. Let's see, on Fridays, yep. He has a different ending segment for each day of the week. Okay, only other streamer with trials I know of is Artosis. Let me know if I'm summoned. Trials? Buzz Fanning says, thanks to the aviators, we know what the other side of the room looks like. Nice. EOR's Explorer says, I heard MK Ultra in the top viewed streamer I see right now, because I'm not that blind, as the most obvious torture victim. J. Edgar 101 is the best Dr. Insano ever. It was a bad grease fire. No, you wouldn't be able to see the grease fire wall from here, because that is actually... The wall there is facing the same direction I am, so it's facing out that way. Because, I mean, yeah, if you see out of the mirror here, there's the doorway there, and then the fire was on the opposite side of the wall from that. Fonzie. No. Once again, not enough hair gel for Fonzie. Quest Fanning says, my taxes went down despite salt being removed. Quest Fanning says, rare earth metals for renewables. China recolonizing Africa. Quest says, I've got a Manimatic selection option on my CVT. Yeah, my friend's Lancer has that too. Well, he doesn't have his Lancer anymore. His wife, I think, still has her Lancer. But yeah, he had a, not the Evo Lancer, but he had a more performance-oriented Lancer, but it still had a CVT in it, and that had the Manimatic in it. EOR says, my copium was that when Judi Dench tattooed I heart HW on her ass and said it was for Harvey Weinstein. I imagine everyone she was just telling that was really for Henry Winkler. 80s kid says, been suffering with the sickness for over a week. Worst thing I ever had, coughing blood. I just want to go, damn it. EOR says, Taco Bell never wrecked me. Whole 30 really lowered my blood pressure. Ooh. Have you thought about going to urgent care, not a hospital? I don't know if they have urgent care in the UK, because if I remember correctly, 80s Kid is in the UK. So I don't know how their medical system works and if they have urgent care or not. Ron says, well, those settlements should come directly out of the pockets or estates of those corrupt Congress people who made those laws. That sounds fair. MK Ultra says, there was a Ready Player 2 released last year. I have no interest. I might go and watch that. Quest says, oh, I remember that episode of TNG. By the way, Quest, speaking of Star Trek, you missed quite the opening card here, and I closed it already, but the opening card that we had here right after we did finance was your mayor, de Blasio, claiming to be Captain Kirk in an original series science officer uniform with Lieutenant Commander stripes. Let's see. Ron Helton says, I'm trying to reform myself. And that's going to be it. That's going to be the last word. Let's go find something nice, cool to come out on. Because we got to metal it up here. A classic. And I don't care if I get copyright pop for it. Because fuck them, that's why. Alright, so thank you everybody who came by. I would love to see what you guys dress up for as Halloween. This is where it's at for me. I'm gonna head out of here. Should I do it in Razor Fist voice to end this out here today? No, because we can't do it as well as he can. I did the intro as him, but I can't do it as well as he is here. But yeah, we're gonna head out of here for the day. We are going to. It was a great day. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad I got to hang out with you guys and do a little bit of a different characterization here. We'll be back here on Monday, back in regular clothes for more contemporary. So come back and hang out with us for that. Probably draw that back just a little bit more. I can't hear myself think over it. But we'll be back here on Monday morning for more contemporary, more news headlines. We'll be doing more of this here, and we will finish out with one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. So come back and hang out with us for that. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. Otherwise, come back here, join me on Monday night for the Red Net Show featuring Stephen Ignoramus and the new song that he wrote for the Red Net Show. I'm fairly excited for that. I'm always excited to have Stephen Ignoramus back on. Like I said, I don't know if he's been here since he's been in his new studio as well. So it has been too goddamn long since we have seen Stephen Ignoramus. So definitely come back and join us for that. And join me for a little bit on Monday for some on-the-ground reporting over at What's Going On Kenosha. We're going to see if there are going to be any riots, if there's going to be anything that the jurors have to walk through, anything else that we have to go with off of that as well. So come back and join us for that as well. And we might even do some video gaming over the weekend here because I'm getting well into Fallout 4 and very much enjoying it. Even though I've played further than that on my own here, getting into the new character and talking with you guys as well. So look for that over the weekend here, and a stream of me working on the Document for Red Net show as well. We're always here. I have streamed. We're almost going on 21 days in a row of streaming. I think we're on 19 right now. So I always want to make content for you. I love making content for you guys. I love dressing up, having some fun out of here, and we will be back here next time. And until next time, I'm Jay Edgar. God fucking speed!